racing right now.
He's got traction, he's going the outside of both of them! Maloney!
Oh, he's taken Anderson! Anderson's up to him!
Oh my God! Big crash! Oh my goodness, half the field's going to get rolled!
Second very close. These guys are want to make their way through the field very quickly.
Oh, there we go!
Oh no! That's massive! This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my God!
God, what?
Good evening and welcome to the NASCAR iRacing series on the iRacing Esports Network. It's week 27 of this 36-week calendar. We're at Richmond Raceway now, going back to the short track action, getting set for a wild race today. And after last week, who knows what may happen. We're full length at Darlington, and it's going to be a bit of a change-up as we go back to our 50% race distance and then throw them all together on a 3/4 mile racetrack. You'll see it all live right here, thanks to SimSpeed TV. My name is Ryan Jones. Alongside me is Justin Prince, and Jake Kennedy is behind the scenes. Justin, what are you expecting to see from today's race?
Well, speaking with one of the drivers who won some of the earlier splits this week, absolute craziness, because it's a racetrack where it's difficult to drive around. You can have a lot of good battles, yes, but at the same time, Ryan, so many times drivers have lost grip in the middle of the corner as the run progresses. This has also become a track in recent years, in real life especially, Ryan, where this track eats up tires. Fall off is significant, and in turn, trying to maintain control is very interesting and very balancing and very difficult. Tonight could be a race filled with either one of two things: long runs or massive attrition. It's the question of which one we get.
Well, I would say, based off previous weeks in this series, probably going to see some decent green flag runs, because the level of talent we've seen has been really good. Even at Darlington, we had a 210 lap green flag run, which was phenomenal. And then it all came crashing down in spectacular fashion. So, expecting a long green flag run at some point, which means pit strategy going to play a part. Strength of field as well, 5,744, which is incredibly high. So a lot of very good drivers have made the trek out to Richmond for today's event. If you do go green, what's the numbers looking like for fuel?
Well, if you remember back to the springtime, the fuel number was about 112 laps as discussed by the coach drivers back then, as well as that expectation for the NIS race. The thing is, Ryan, do we get to that point where you take a green flag pit stop? That's a massive risk, because you never know if there's going to be a caution flag. In some of the races this week, when following along with some of the top split action on Thursday especially, there were cautions on average about every 15-20 laps. Both races this week in top split action, Ryan, have had 11 cautions and 56 caution laps. So those numbers have to definitely be in the heads of all these drivers tonight to figure out, okay, I'm going to pit at this time, etc., while making sure they don't use all their sets of tires that are in the pits during the said caution flag periods.
Going to be interesting. Plenty of choices to be made, and of course qualifying is currently underway for the drivers to set their spot on the grid, but as usual, not everyone is wanting to be a part of qualifying. Plenty are happy to start further back in the field, and no one has currently got a time on the board. Oh no, never mind, my iRacing just updated. We've got 11 with times on the board.
Yes, very different numbers, but the qualifying pace expected to be very quick tonight. In the 20.8 to the top of the board at the moment, 21.2s at the bottom of the board. The main thing is going to be which drivers elect to qualify, because it's a stacked field tonight. You have some of the regular mainstays like Garrett Maines and Ryan Doucette and Brian Mercurio and Boyd Hogan, who's won a race in top split this week. You also, however, have various different Coke drivers in the field. You have Nathan Lyon, you have Kane Cook, you have Graham Bolin. There's mixes of talent here, like we've seen back in the springtime. Plus, we have different drivers we normally don't see in open action, like Tucker Minter. We've seen more so in the fixed side for NIS action, but known more for his setup building abilities in Be Open, where he helped out real-world drivers for that Happy Hour event at the Daytona Road Course. There's a big-time mix of traffic, and there's a lot of storylines mixed in with said traffic tonight. There's going to be a lot to discuss.
And Raja Karuth as well. Late model stock driver as well for Rev Racing. So keep an eye on him as well, part of the Richmond Raceway esports program too. So what I think maybe a contender for our strongest field of the season, isn't it? There are so many good drivers and well-known names out there today, which should make for a fun 200 laps around this track. We're starting just before sunset, so we'll be finishing under the lights. And I'm sure those Richmond Raceway esport drivers will be hunting for a good result and a win at their home track. If I think back to the start of the year, I think Garrett Maines just missed out back then.
I believe so, when he's come close a few times to victories in NAS action on Friday nights. We've seen him come away with a checker flag a couple times, but the interesting part, though, is, Ryan, he's never actually won the Open so far at Richmond, which is a track he's a part of the development program with Raja Karuth on the iRacing service. So when speaking with Maines earlier this week, as part of the podcast I do, it was part of some of the importance he has because it's actually his home track as well from his area. So it's an important race for Maines that I know he's going to want to win tonight.
And time runs out on qualifying. In the end, 19 drivers setting times. So that's about half our field. That's a little bit more than I actually expected to see, and maybe that's because it is a short track and there can often be a lot of drama, and working your way through can often bring a lot of frustration. But this is how they line up then, ready for the action tonight. Garrett Maines has got the pole. He'll start with Daniel Smallwood on his outside. Vicente Salas and Boyd Hogan line up on row 2. Jose Stolas Jr. and Colin Allman 5th and 6th ahead of Seth Knoll, Malik Ray on row 4. Keith Bridgman, Matt Forkapper starting out of 9th and 10th.
Sam King starting 11 tonight. Keep in mind, a few weeks ago switched over to Legacy Esports. He'll start alongside Austin Johnson. Eric Conrad for Nexus Esports starts alongside his teammate and Patrick Moose, while Mike Bruno from Phase 2 starts in 15th. They've been increasing their Cup car presence in recent weeks. Tanner Love amongst a massive shakeup, in fact, Ryan, this week. One of the main storylines, several of the drivers from F5 moving over to Legacy, including Tanner Love. He'll start in 16th in his broadcast debut with the team in NIS action, with Brian Mercurio in 17th. The last drivers to qualify, Matthew Benson and Ryan Doucette, and the first driver set by Irene will be Graham Bowen in 20th.
Jake Matheson behind him with Tucker Minter alongside Brendan McKissick and James Wenzel on row 12. Kane Cook and Daniel Wilborn 25th and 26th. Joshua Campbell, Jonathan Hernandez, Sean Powell, Justin Patello, Raja Karuth, Jake Hickson, Seth Ryder, Michael Guest, and Harrison Lyon. 35 cars, 200 laps. Track is pretty cool as well as we get underway. Almost under the lights. Lights are on. A bit of sunlight still peeking through. 22 degrees Celsius, 71 degrees Fahrenheit. So there should be, in theory, a fair bit of grip out there. If not, it might take a little bit longer for those tyres to come up to temperature.
In theory, yes, but at the same time, you also have to think about there's going to be a lot of fast speeds around here, especially in the short run. Expect a lot of drivers to try and send it early and try and gain a lot of track position around this respective racetrack this evening. It's going to be an entertaining one, Ryan. The question's going to be, how patient are you going to be as a driver? How smart will you be? And will you be able to avoid any carnage that you may see tonight? Those are going to be keys to win tonight here under this partly cloudy sky and as we approach full darkness.
Well enough on the pace car. 1 or 2 pace laps at Richmond, Justin?
I believe so here in the things I'm watching for at the start of this race as well. Drivers like Michael Guest, I believe Guest is actually stalled on the grid. Michael Guest, one of your pro drivers for tonight, I don't think has started rolling and just began to roll in his 15th overall car number in iRating. So that could have been bad if that didn't get rolling. For 1 on the pace laps, thankfully there's a couple here, but 2, it's going to be a race where several drivers are going to have to pounce to try and gain track position early on. Expect drivers like Cook, like Guest, like Lyon to try and dive their way through the field and take it 3 wide early on. It's a track where you need to make your moves early, or else you end up being To describe some of the discussion during some of the real-world broadcasts the past couple of days, get stuck in the pack.
Yeah, but we've seen, haven't we, so often, Harrison Lyon, in particular, coming from the back to the front so quickly, almost with ease. Before we start, look at the top of Garrett Maines' car running a special livery for today. It is September 11, never forget, 19 years ago. Garrett Maines running a livery in tribute, but now we get to go racing. Green flag is out, racing from Richmond. What a start that was. Garrett Maines dives down to the inside straight away. In fact, top three. I see Kyle Salas slots in behind Jose Stolas Jr. Just able to leave enough for Boyd Hogan out of turn 2. And now down into 3 and 4. Field score through the first half lap clean.
Nice and clean so far in this race as Hogan shuffled out to P5 on the racetrack. He nearly got hit from the back end from cars like this because everyone knows, on the short run at least, you need to be right next to the yellow line. The thing is, there's two different driving styles. You can go for the flat entry and try and ride right next to the yellow line and then go higher on the exit. Some like to go for a double apex. We've seen Hogan try the double apex, nearly got turned by the Nexus car, and now Ray, in turn, taking the big boy set and actually nearly hit the 14 out of the way.
That was a big lunge, wasn't it, down into turn 1, and it's propped and all up top. And it's going to allow the next car in line to go by. Colin Orman and Keith Bridgman going to get his nose in there as well. This is what you'll see a fair bit tonight. Once you get moved off that bottom line, you can very easily get freight trained by cars coming by you. So Bridgman's got by now. And Matt Forcarper's got his nose in there, but Noel's just going to clear him out of the corner. Very close between them. That exit from turn 2. Very tricky, isn't it, Justin? That fence seems to come up a lot quicker than you expect.
Yeah, I've seen several times, especially in the longer runs, drivers push up off the corner and chew up the right front tires even, trying to hit the gas. So it's one where you need to be very patient. It's a technical short track when you think about it, even though it doesn't look like that at times. If you aren't smart on moves, you're going to get yourself in trouble. As Solis Jr., he's slowed down. Believe he had technical issues, Ryan, and he's moving out of the way because of them.
Tumbles down the timing screens. There he is, bottom of the racetrack. He started this one from 5th. He's now all the way at the back in 35th. Michael Guest 32nd after he almost failed to get moving at the start of this race. Looking at Tanner Love, buried in the pack as well. That's Harrison Lyon that has just got by him, and Matthew Benson in there as well. All these guys just hunting for a bit of air on their nose and a way through. Lap traffic going to be a big factor as well. Another reason why you've got to get through the pack very quickly.
Exactly. And it's so important with clean air to get around this racetrack right with some of these longer runs. But I'm curious, though, on some of these drivers and how they adapt as this race goes on. Vicente Salas has been very impressive. He's been trying to work with Maines for the Rallycross qualifiers. Maines actually qualified for that in just a couple weeks from now, Ryan. Keep in mind as well, Maines actually won his first Top Foot Road to Pro race at the start of this past week over at Martinsville. So that group has a lot of momentum going its direction, Ryan, entering tonight.
Momentum is good, but actual raw speed on the racetrack and a bit of luck, it is going to go a long way as well. We know how crazy short tracks can get. Next up, you go to Bristol, so it's only going to get worse for these drivers when it comes to frenetic energy on the racetrack, as Bridgman is really forcing the issue, trying to get low. He can't do it. Sam King goes by. Garrett Conrath as well going to follow, and now Bridgman's going to lose out. It's probably Patrick Moose too, so he's struggling back there on the fringes of the top 10. We're looking at Vicente Salas, who's just got his way up into 2nd. Made a move in Daniel Smallwood on that lap. Boyd Hogan watching on, looking for a way through as well. Trying to get the exit from turn 2, so he can put the car underneath into turn 3, but he's just a little bit too far back.
And when talking with him a little bit on Thursday, he told me a little bit that his car is more set up for the longer runs here at Richmond. It's not so much where you can blast by people in the short run. Say if it comes down to a couple lap shootout, you need about 20-30 laps before the speed really starts to settle in with the tire wear balance. I think in about 10 laps Hogan will be okay. It's just a matter of maintaining distance with the cars in front as the gap is still increasing. Keep in mind, some of your Coke drivers start deep in the field. They're still marred in a lot of traffic. Kane Cook is only in 16th. You have Lyon in 23rd, and Bolin, who's still in 14th or so.
Looking on board at the moment from Matt Forecarper as Sam King. Well, he basically harasses the back of him. Boyd Hogan, by the way, up the order, has just got by Daniel Smallwood. Big move down at turn 1. King hoping to replicate that in his 24 machine. See how close he gets in the middle of the corner. If he can keep the car there and get the power down well, he should be able to get a move done at the next corner. And in fact, that's exactly what he's done. Inside line is offered up. And at this stage in the race, there's not much sense in fighting that too hard if you're Matt Forecarper.
Exactly. It's a long ways away to go, and you know points paying time is still about an hour or so away, so may as well just keep it calm and not burn up your stuff trying to fight for a position that in turn you're likely going to lose and kill your run for about 20 laps from now. Because drivers mentioned when discussing things back in the springtime, if you burned up your stuff in the first 20 laps, you'd be paying for it about 20 laps after that. We're starting to see some of those drivers do that. In fact, with some of the damage, they're 3 wide, in fact, with Graham Bolin trying to dive past everyone.
That's one way to do it. Oh, they all came together. You can see that coming. Keith Bridgman on the outside comes off worse for wear. He turned down almost as if he didn't know they were 3 wide, and that left the men in the middle meeting the sandwich with nowhere to go but the left side door of that 33. So he gets away with it, but he loses a whole bunch of spots as a result. Falls back into line in 21st, right behind James Wenzel. He's got Austin Johnson now behind him. Here's the replay thanks to Murdum's simulation.
And I almost wonder that he expected a bit of a send more so towards the inside line, or should I rather say, more expected a back off from at least one of the drivers, maybe even the middle car. But Bridgman, he would have got the spotter call right on the entry. I think he almost wanted to keep that secondary line, but didn't want to give it up. So this is where it just hurt him in turn, because you can see he was wiggling a little bit. You have this Nexus car right behind who was gaining time on the corner exits. Then you had Bolin, who knows he's lightning quick with what he had for the Coke Series. Right there, that checkup just started all the madness.
Yeah, it was a mistake. The wobble out of turn 2. Checked up the man behind. Allowed Graham Bolin to get the run as well. His car rotated very nicely through 3 and 4 to get to the inside. And then 3 into 1 doesn't go. And good job from Bridgman to keep that car going in the right direction for the most part. And they stay green. He lives to fight another day. And now he's got Raja Karuth as a company in 21st. Up the order though. Battle for 10th. Here's Graham Bolin, and behind another group of 2, and he picks up Colin Orman.
He's got Technical Alliance members who are working away behind him. Keep an eye on Kane Cook as well. Bolin's almost, it seems, been trying to set up some help for that 55 to follow him suit match for match. Also keep an eye on Ray, who is still up in P4 in all this, who's just able to save his tires. So those drivers are lightning quick. Remember, they were lightning quick at Darlington and NAS last week, those Technical Alliance cars, before Ray lapped the field nearly twice before his crash.
Here's Kane Cook. It's fun watching the Coca-Cola Series drivers make their way through the field, because they seem to do it with ease if we ignore Graham Bolin's mishap a lap or 2 ago. But even that, the way he was able to get the car to the inside of both cars up top and then keep the car glued to the inside for turn 1 was impressive in itself, because you forget, these drivers make it look easy, don't they, Justin? It's not that easy.
No, it's not, and it takes thousands of laps to find something that works and to build your set to your own preferences. and to be able to carry the most speed. It's to the point now where Bolin, Cook, and Ray are your 3 quickest cars, believe, on the racetrack right now. Everyone else is about a full 1/10 of a second slower. And meanwhile, drivers like Colin Ullman, they're just going backwards because they've lost the bottom line, and his tires have gone off to the point where he's stuck in the wall.
Yeah, just nipped the fence there. Who's next up on that low line? Tucker Minter, Ryan Mercurio, Harrison Lyon, and James Wenzel. Might be able to get in line behind Lyon. There's a small gap back to Wenzel, but I think that is decreasing quickly enough that he might be able to get there. There's the gap I was talking about, and nope, can't fill the hole. So, Ullman finally gets in line behind Wenzel.
Like I said, this track eats tires, Ryan, and the fall off already 1 second, and we're just about 30 laps into the race and expect to even drop even more so. I think when it comes to Ullman, though, you've seen with that corner exit, that's what's killing him there, that corner exit where it's getting a little bit almost loosish to where he has to be careful on the gas. Compare that to Mercurio here, and you can tell he's able to carry a little more exit speed, while drivers like Lyon are just able to roll the center more to catch up right to the back bumper of everybody.
So our biggest movers at this point in the race, Justin, well, you've got Graham Boland plus 11, Kane Cook plus 13, Harrison Lyon plus, what is that, 17? Yep.
Yes.
You've got Raja Karuth plus 10, Michael Guest plus 12. That's pretty much a who's who list.
Yeah, not surprised there, and a bit of tension starting to boil. So it's going to be the question now. Yes, apparently, if you check down the back straightaway of that last time by, there was contact between Bowen and Furkapa on corner entry. Because Bowen backed up the entry, Furkapa gave him the back bumper, and Bowen was able to hold on to it. Believe that may have peeved the driver of the Joe Gibbs racing machine, or Joe Gibbs gaming machine, rather. Still able to keep it clean, though. That's the bright side.
Yeah, we're going to see plenty more of that over the course of this race. That Interstate Batteries Camry is now quickly closing on the back of Sam King after pulling away from Four Carper, who's got a group lined up behind him. Rumble with Patrick Moose. That's Four Carper at the head of the train. Kane Cook, Garrett Conrath in this as well. But behind Moose, you've got Doucette, Matheson, and McKissick, and a couple more too. So Four Carper, I would say, is probably struggling a little bit with his tyres, as Kane Cook turns it down much nicer off of turn 4. He gets to the inside of Carper, who very cleverly didn't fight it. He lifted off so that on the entry he was able to straight away tuck it back down to the low line.
At this point, it's once again nearly a repeat of Darlington, right? The same technical alliance members are all right on the money and pace, and just leaving everyone else in the dust, it seems, so far. It's still very early on, Ryan, but here's the difficult part. All those fast cars now have track position. Ray, he's been keeping about even, surprisingly, to the gap between him and Maines, but he's also reeled in Salas. He has ditched Boyd Hogan, who's also dropped off a 1/10 of a second a lap compared to these cars.
Yeah, it's pretty close, actually, from second on back. But Garrett Maines is putting one on the field right now. 2 seconds clear of Salas. Hogan's dropped second away. 2.5 now from that P2 battle. Just having a look now where the final car on the racetrack is. So remember, these guys are doing about 21, 22 second lap times. Otto Johnson is 20 seconds away from the lead of the race. So Garrett Maines, give it 4 or 5 laps, will catch the first car to go a lap down. In fact, yeah.
Was going to say, for groupings such as this you see on screen, by the way, that's going to make it interesting as Minter had to really save the car. Really got loose. I wonder if Lyon may have got into him maybe, or just sent it a little bit too hard to the apex. We might have to take another look at that.
Well, he got very close to the car in front, so I wonder if even he had to grab the brakes mid-corner, which is a recipe for disaster, usually. The steering input you have in. So this is involved with Lyon. This will tell us whether there was contact between himself and number 8, the Nexus car in front. Into turn 1. Nope. The 8 just got loose.
I think you're right. He just may have had to check up a little bit harder on the brakes to make sure he didn't hit the back end of his teammate in Matheson. And that little extra bit of brake pressure just caused the car to bobble just out of the groove and lose the momentum. Lost a couple spots in the process. The surprising thing, I think, is Lyon's still deep in this field, plus 19, yes, but hasn't been able to get moving as now the teammates trying to fight as Malik Ray has pulled off the racetrack.
And Ray's gone.
I think he just elected to pull down to the pit lane. He had a tiny bit of damage on the right front. That might have been hurting him a little bit, and he said, you know what? I'm going to just pull up to the side of the racetrack and pull it to the pits and left. Unbelievable.
I mean, if that's the case, I'd be sorely disappointed in that display, but I would hazard maybe something happening in real life, because we saw last week he toughed it out when a lot of Coca-Cola Series drivers were testing. He was actually winning by a lap, wasn't he? Before halfway, until chaos ensued, and he ended up having to retire from that one. So probably something happening in real life there for Ray. Either way, still 34 cars running. The lead for Mains actually starting to be reeled in ever so slightly by Vicente Salas.
To touch upon that point, though, here's something to chew on is you're in the Coke Series, right? So you're up at the highest level. For NIS, it's essentially for fun. Some drivers I know have the mindset in some cases of, if I don't have a chance to win, then may as well work on testing for the next race. Not to try and assume, you have to wonder if that maybe is something, the mindset along those lines, etc.
He was running third.
He still had damage, though, which would have hurt him his chance to catch up to both Salas and Mains and or pass them. Because you have a tiny bit of aero damage here, that's about half a tenth of a second you lose per lap from it.
Yeah. Perhaps the other thing to note is number 8 car in the session. So you finished dead last. Number 13, rather. You finished dead last. It's not great for your iRating. You lose enough iRating, you get bumped out of top split.
Yeah, but he's got a 6K, so he's got the buffer by at least 1,000 to be able to continue to do that if he so chooses per a week. Still, though, many of the top contenders, mind you, including your top contenders for Road to Pro, just continue to seem to scrap it out. You still have drivers on screen like Mercurio. You have drivers like Matheson. All just, I think, just trying to figure out their pace, and it almost looks like for the pace of Mercurio it's coming to him, for Minter it's going away a little bit more, and for Guest, I've always been Michael Guest.
I've got my eye on the leader now as well, now that Mains is well and truly in traffic. Traffic is fine when it's just one car. The issue's going to arise when he starts heading to groups that are fighting each other. Cars like this, that are side by side. I don't think he'll get to 12th place, but you never know. But further back, even in the 20s or low 30s, you'll find drivers battling side by side, and there's no blue flags in NASCAR. Remind you of that nothing obligating them to get out of the way, and if they get out of your way, they only cost themselves time to the car they're racing with. I think Austin Johnson has joined Malik Ray as a retirement in this race. In fact, he has.
Yeah, he was way off the pace in his SPG machine, unfortunate for him. So those cars continuing to drop backwards in the pylon, but this traffic, it's going to start getting a little bit thick, especially when you run side by side like this, up a couple grooves even, to try different lines. For drivers like Campbell, just trying to gain positions and look for a bit of a different complexion after last week.
Hey, Mains is only 10, 15 car lengths behind this group. So these guys are going to want to sort themselves out, or not, before Mains gets there, as Hickson on the bottom right now, just struggling to make that overtake on Benson. Sean Powell, I think, has got a bit of pace, but can't do anything with it as they run side by side in front of him. Hickson finally able to clear Benson. And Powell's running an interesting line, isn't he?
Yeah, not the expected line you would normally see, to say the very least, but Maines hasn't been really losing too much time. In fact, he's been gaining time with where he's been reaching the traffic. A lot of it's been moving to the side. It's been very cordial so far. They haven't been finding aggressive. But when you get to position battles up the racetrack, that's going to be the major concern if you're Maines. That's still a ways away, but this is one of the longest green flag runs of the week in top split action right now. 54 laps green already, Ryan. Remember, we had 56 laps of cautions the previous 2 top splits at Richmond this week.
Something about Friday night NIS brings out the hunger for green flag racing, it would seem. Because last week, we had the longest green flag run of the week at 210 laps, and maybe hunting for it again this week. Side by side, the 24 and the 55 down low. That's Kane Cook taking it away from Sam Cook, so he's up inside the top 5. Joining Graham Boland, about 5/10 of a second up the road from him now. Sam King's doing a good job at the moment. Picked up some spots early, but he's not fought too hard with the guys like Cook and Boland who've come by him. And he's only 8 seconds away from the lead of the race, sitting pretty comfortably at the moment in 6th position, +5 from where he started. Here's Seth Knoll. From here on back, there's a big group of cars.
Yeah, this entire cluster, you have all the way back to 19th, separated by just 4 seconds near bumper to bumper. Smallwood's just among those drivers who have just started to fall off towards lap 50 onward now. You have drivers from Nexus all grouped together, some of the low-line cars, as well as some of the Coke drivers just starting to slowly make their way past. And now, drivers like him and Forkapa are now in a bit of danger here. Smallwood just finally made a hole.
Michael Guest is coming up to these 4 as well. He's in 12th. Wow, Conrath, Forkapa and Smallwood leaving each other no room on the exit of turn 2 there. And Forkapa actually finding good time up on the top side. In fact, with the exit, he's going to make that move stick. That's the first time I've seen the outside work today. And as we get further into the run, expect to see more and more of that. In fact, Michael Guest has gone straight up there as well to try and get by Conrath.
Yeah, now it looks like all of a sudden it's just rubbered up in here with Solon running, somebody spinning.
Patrick Moose. We stay green as 2 cars get around him. Now he's spun it again, almost. Those rear tyres blazing hot. Great job to keep it off the wall. Great job from, it was, I think, Mercurio and Wenzel to get around him. And here is the replay. Next time they go through turn 4.
I don't know how in the world there wasn't a caution here or demolished race cars. Patrick Moose lost grip on his own, tried to take that arc we talked about for the entry, but right about here just starts getting loose once he's trying to let off the brake. Just locks it up to keep it from spinning, keeps it on the gas to get to the bottom, and Mercurio and company just barely avoid even hitting the wall. Moose also avoids getting massive tire spin. We stay green. The downside for a Patrick Moose fan is he's now 23rd on very hot tires.
Yeah, and once you heat those tires up to that point, sometimes you just never get them back. Here's the replay from on board with Wenzel. This is the view he had. There's Moose struggling at this time. He thinks the low line's the way to go. Nope, go top, go top. And he had to really slow it down to avoid driving himself into the safety barriers. It cost him a chunk of time, but the good news is his car is still squeaky clean. As Doucette looking to drive around the outside of Seth Knoll. Whoop. Who had a wiggle?
And it looks like the right rear tires are starting to burn off some of these cars, and that's allowing that middle line to work, where you can pitch the car down and get a better run, having more momentum off the corner. That's now become the preferred line all of a sudden, just like it's flipped a switch, surprisingly, in this one, now that it's down to full darkness, and we put in a ton of rubber on the track, and the track temp itself has ticked up about 9 degrees Fahrenheit from when we started this race, with so many laps turned around here already.
The interesting thing is we're not that far off in lap times. We're only, a second off. Almost 65 laps in. A second and a half, maybe. But the cars, it seems to be more of a lack of grip as opposed to a lack of pace. If you've got the know-how, you can get around the track quickly. It's just incredibly sketchy. So, how big is the undercut here? It's still going to be worth quite a bit.
Yeah, looking at the lap times, it's more so around the 2-second mark. But the interesting thing is, if you try the undercut, do you end up in turn a bit of caution? Because usually when you have these massive, massive long green flag runs, you're likely going to see the attrition and cautions come into play when you have drivers on different tire cycles. So that's going to be the major gamble for some of these cars. Tucker Minter just took the gamble, in fact, in the 8 car.
Yep. So Tucker Minter comes in with that hard left through turn 4. Wonder if he's breaking this race up into thirds, going for a 2-stop race maybe as he pits just past lap 68. Yeah, some drivers who burst out of the gates like Mains, his drop-off is close to 2 seconds. Some of the guys struggled for raw pace, and their drop-off doesn't look quite as bad on paper, but yeah, I think you're right, closer to 2 seconds for most of the field. So Minter comes out, now a lap down. So he's got to pray that this stays...
Oh, caution!
Oh.
You jinxed it. I believe it was the 29 who actually got into contact with Richmond, who really shoved up the corner in 3 and 4.
I hadn't even finished saying he's got to pray it stays green, and the caution came out.
That's how the commentator's curse works, right? In some cases, it can happen while you're saying it, while you've been looking at him.
The issue is he's gotten 2 laps down. That's the killer. Even the wave around keeps him a lap down. So, this is going to be great news for 33 cars and terrible for one of them, Tucker Minter. Everyone going to come to pit road. No doubt about that. Staying out is probably not the greatest option. Garrett Mains leads him. And Mains is happy with this because look at the gap he had back to second place. 70 laps cars between them. The chances of him losing a spot on pit road are pretty small.
Yeah, if he even has any damage, he can just take the time to get it fixed now and probably not even lose the lead. Believe that is squeaky clean. Have to give credit. That pit crew, nice and happy it looks like on the wall.
Hey, why has Garrett Mains got a full pit crew and the others don't?
Long story. But Mains has a lawn advantage out of the pit lane. And it's now Mains, Salas, Bowen, and Hogan, believe. Your top 4. Bowen actually jumped a couple cars.
Here's a replay of the 96 of Mains' pit crew.
Oh, here it is.
This spin. Whoa, yeah.
There was a bit of a wobble up right before this. Bridgman actually wobbled up the racetrack, Ryan, in turn 3 entry, similar to what we've seen happen with one of the Nexus cars. But this time, he didn't essentially lock it up. This is while Allman was all over the racetrack. Bridgman starts to drift, thinks he saves it, and just drifts right into the left rear of the 29 and sends him into a 4.360.
That brought out the caution, even though I think his lowest speed was probably still higher than Patrick Moose's in terms of those spins, but he was facing the wrong way. So we neutralized the field here at lap 72 of 200. Everyone's come in at this point and not able to get home from here, about 20 laps short. So still another pit stop to come if we stay green. Critical lap would be about lap 90, would you say, Justin?
If that, but then again, I don't think you pit after only a couple laps green. Don't be surprised if everyone tries to stretch it as long as they can on the field, and a couple try and gamble, because here's your example. If you get a caution at any point and you decide to pit, you're pinned a lap down, and that's what Minter is, even with the wave around. To quote Minter, I believe in text, rip that strategy call, hate to see it. That's the best way to put it. He hated to see that, and now he's going to pay the price for it.
Yeah, so he'll get a wave around, he'll be a lap down, and hoping for some things to go his way. Still got a few chances. If he can get up to Matthew Benson and get the lucky dog, he'll get that if a caution comes out at that point. Or waiting for the entire field to pit and staying out again. But even in itself, that's a terrible gamble because I don't think we're going to see everyone pitting for at least another 15, 20, probably more laps. There's always going to be someone at this point that might go for the gamble and do something different. So Garrett Mays will lead us back to the green. And Vicente Salas will get to start from second as opposed to third this time, but a whole bunch of new names up inside that top 10. As opposed to when we started this one about 40 minutes ago. Green flag back out from Richmond. And again, a very good start for your top 2, top 3 single file into turn 1. It's almost like our initial start.
Now the true test is, how will Graham Bowen be? He's very loose.
Answer that question. All the way down on the bottom side of the track now. That's going to allow a bunch to go by. Garrett Conrath goes by as well. Bowen has still got an overlap, so he should be able to take this one back away from that 10 car if he's got those tyres still at a decent temperature, and it seems like he has. So he goes back by, reclaims one of those lost spots. All stacked up behind them though, 2 by 2 for a lot of the field from here on back.
And just seems so far the 08 Sauer Esports machines are the best ones on the short run. The ones aligned with Dead Zone Racing are the best on the long run so far we've seen. Now it's the question, how will things play out now that drivers like Bowen and Cook have track position after having to pass all the cars behind them the previous run? So this is going to be the true test to see what the raw pace is here at Richmond under the lights here, with still a long ways to go.
Vicente Salas is not letting Mains get away this time. He is keeping him honest about a colour and a half back. So it will be interesting to see whether this pace from Salas can maintain over the course of this run. Could be a case of his short run's not bad, but his long run starts to fade compared to the number 1 car. But right now, doing a pretty decent job as both of them run away from Kane Cook in third.
A little bit of madness behind them though here, Ryan, because Roger Carruth last time by shuffled up the racetrack and nearly hit the outside wall. That stacked up the whole group of cars you see just a bit in the backdrop, where they are 3 wide down the backstretch. They finally calmed down, but this in turn has opened up the floodgates for other cars like Matheson and company to try and push in this run and take advantage of that big bottle up that happened, all while some of the Air Nexus cars are actually slapping the wall in the backdrop once again.
Not even at halfway yet, boys. Settle down. Got to make it to the end before you start to get really aggressive in this one. But it is short track style. I mean, it is a short track, I should say. And you know how tempers like to flare when you get to these little ovals. There's Matt Forcarpa, who's had an up and down race so far, hasn't he? Seems to struggle a bit with his tyre life, but he's still up inside the top 10, so it's not gone too badly for him. Lost out to Graham Boland, so Boland was very quickly able to get back by not only Conrath, but Forcarpa and King as well.
Graham, based on experience, if he feels like he's got a faster car, he's going to make you work for trying to hold on to him and very quickly. So that's not a surprise. The interesting thing's going to be, again, how did some of these teams adjust? Because we talked about Hogan, the winner at the Chop Split on Wednesday. His speed, surprisingly, on the longer run just wasn't there, I think, to what he was expecting, where he led a majority of the laps the previous night. The Coke drivers, meanwhile, curious to see how they feel now with the positioning up front, because the best of the Coke drivers is now Kane Cook, who's kept within about 1.6 seconds to Mains and Salas. So I'm curious, once we get about another 10 laps on the tires, will that be the green light for the 55 and the 18 for the Coke Series registered drivers to be able to gain the time back up and try and fight for the race lead? Only time can tell.
Exactly right there. And about 2 laps away from the critical lap, we think, but not expecting anyone to come in and fill the tank up to the end at this point, because Tucker Minter gave us a good example of what happens if you do get caught out by a caution, as now Harrison Lyon has worked his way by that little group, and he is up into 7th place.
Should note that Tucker Minter, by the way, is in the lucky dog spot, Ryan. Wilburn got the lucky dog last caution flag and has built a couple buffer cars to his position. So if there's a caution at a timely moment for Tucker Minter, he can try and get back on the lead lap. He needs a bit of luck, though, for that to play out. All while the rest of these drivers are getting back into the rhythm point, back single file, as some of the other drivers getting ready to let each other go. Already hearing Bowen's going to be let go by Hogan. Question is going to be, does Forcappa let Guest go? Might have to let him go here.
Hogan got to be careful, he doesn't cost himself too much time here. You expect that as Bowen gets to his bumper, he'll lift off and actually just probably take the high line of the corner. That's exactly what he does through 3 and 4. Tucks back in behind. It looks like he's going for the crossover, but he's not. He's just maximizing his speed through the corner. Be sure not to get into the back of that 18 into turn 1, and that is a very smooth exchange of positions between those two.
As we expected, but here's Minter as we were talking about. He's built up buffers on Hickson, Wilborn, Campbell, and Richmond to be able to separate him, and it's hooked onto the back of Bryant, who's set in his pack. As long as Minter does what he needs to do here, and that is continue to build buffers between him and Garrett Maines, he's likely going to be your lucky dog if there's a caution flag, but he needs that luck to settle in. If he burns up the rear tires like he did last run and falls back on time and loses all the buffer spots and in turn loses a lap, his race is basically done unless he gets a massive amount of cautions in late going.
Sam King not giving any sort of favour to Harrison Lyon like Graham Boland received from Hogan. Lyon was all over his bumper through 3 and through 4 into turn 1. It almost gives him a bump as he went in really deep. Diamond sort of through the corner and gets the exit as well. Able to carry that momentum down the back straight to the inside, and that should be a move done. It is.
And Sam King, the short track specialist, trying to make him work no more for his ability in the late models. He's been working more and more in the Cup cars in the past couple months or so. I don't think he wanted to lose those spots because every time the run gets to about this point, he's lost a couple spots as the tires start to wear off and the fall off starts to really settle on in. This time, however, with so many laps turned and the track being fairly hotter than what some of these cars may have expected or drivers expected with these longer runs tonight, he's more on the floatier side. Same can be said for some of the Nexus cars you see on screen. That was a bit of a floating moment, I believe, from Brandon McKissick.
I think we spoke a bit about setup last week, Justin, as opposed to tight versus loose at Darlington. Short track, tight, loose. I'd probably want a bit of oversteer on the car, to be honest, if I was coming to a short track.
Yeah, you don't want to lose off on throttle time on corner exit especially. But in turn, if you are set up on the looser balance, you need to know how to be able to sort of treat the throttle like there's an egg underneath. Be able to be careful on the throttle to where you don't mash the gas and kill your tires. Bowen, he's let go by King Cook. But the example essentially is, say you're going full throttle on corner exit. You're killing that right rear in about 30 laps. You go half throttle on the short run with that same car, you're likely going to be much more balanced for a decent amount more time and have much less rear wear because you aren't going as fast on the corner exit and in turn shredding that right rear tire off.
Garrett Maines, I think his long run car is stacking up very well. We saw him do very well in the first run. Remember, I highlighted Salas had gone with him at the start of this stint, but now he's fallen to a second away, and Maines is not suffering any sort of fall off at all compared to the field. Maybe Graham Boland, though, might be someone to look out for. Running in third place at the moment as we hit halfway through the race. A 22-1 last time for Boland, 22-1 as well for Maines. So that number 18 is matching mains pretty well.
They must have put in a lot of work compared to the past couple of days and the past couple of weeks, especially on the best performances for Elite Summer Esports. But for Solus Jr., he's still on the recovery drive. Remember, he had all that track position. But then his technical issues cost him his spots, because if he stayed in that time up at the front of the field, he's likely getting turned around. And now, it's taken him this long just to get up to 13th. It might take him to the end of the race at this rate to get back where he was before. We might have been talking about him potentially being inside the top 10 much of the race, but now he's just settled in and basically grouped up where the rest of his teammates are, and one of the fastest offset teammates for Nexus tonight.
Yeah. The other thing is the track evolution is not quite as bad as it was at Darlington. Well, I say bad, but I mean bad for the drivers. Good for us. Because it's only 200 laps as opposed to 367 around that Darlington track. But it's still a big talking point, especially when the race started pretty much just before sunset. Now we're under the lights. So, did you maybe sacrifice a bit of that very early pace to make sure your car's good when the track has come down a little bit? Speaking of which, the track jumps actually gone up now that cars have run on it.
Yeah, we talked about that a little before, but yeah, 110%. If you know you're going to be running under the full lights much of the race, you're adjusting for the car being under the full lights. You're not going to make the adjustment for it to run in the middle of the daytime for about 10 minutes. So it's just common sense and setup strategy as Hogan lets by both line and guest. Hogan's not going to be quite too happy after this one. Is still it's now coach drivers P3, 4, 5, and 6 in the field.
It was Auto Club, I think, where we had the top 10 all Cup Series drivers.
Yes, sir.
That was a crazy race. So, yeah.
Remember it being 2-3 wide, much of the pack. Still remember blowing my motor, unfortunately, hitting the back end of Sheehan when he checked up after he passed a wreck. Still, though, it's going to get interesting because Owen is now the car to watch. He's turned up his speed by about a tenth to half a tenth a lap. All of a sudden, the pace is now his.
What you'll find is he's probably been saving those tires up, just rolling around comfortably. Now he's able to find some clean air. Salas is no longer in front of him, and he thinks to himself, now is the time to go with just over 90 laps left in this race. If a caution comes out, everyone's going to come in, and they're all going to be filling up to get home.
I'm expecting everyone to try and stretch it all the way as long as they can, and maybe see drivers think about pitting at about 40 or 35 to go if it stays along that green, because you don't want to be Tucker Minter again. So that's now where we expect it to just be either who stays out the longest, who plays what on the fuel number mount, because keep in mind, that's also important to how much fuel you put in the car with the weight in the back end and the adjustments in turn you put for underfueling it, and as well how you factor in your tire wear. That could be, if this continues the way it is, to be a factor. If we get the cautions, however, if you got a short run car like we've seen mains tonight have, you're in a good spot as long as you keep the track position.
It's going to be interesting to see how this little battle unfolds. They're 1.1 seconds apart on the racetrack now, and there's a few different factors that can play a role in this. Obviously the tyre life and their individual performances, but don't forget that lap traffic. It's going to become a factor again, as it was in the first stint towards the end. And as we get closer to the end of the race, the lap traffic is going to become less favourable for the lead lap cars.
Absolutely. And drivers like Wilborn at the tail end of the lead lap, you still ever have the drivers pinned a lap down in all of this. Still intrigued on how this plays out as we take a look once again at Hogan. Currently one of your top running non-Coke drivers in this field, just continuing to follow the back end of the 33 and just chug along. His teammate Sam King just falls right on behind, where Orkapa just trying to reel in the back end of King. He is dead even, just about on pace to the cars in front.
Jose Solis Jr. running 13th right now. Started this race 5th, has gone backwards, had a couple mishaps. Car looks a bit loose, points a bit too loose for his liking. And I think he's still struggling a little bit now. Jake Matheson looking a bit quicker as Solis Jr. adventures a little bit further up the racetrack. Not quite flying any pace right now, and he allows Matheson to go by.
Yeah, just let the teammates go in that case, but now the main storyline here. How will this fight go? Because I don't know if your mains, you make it easy for Bolin. We've seen at the same time, though, you frustrate Bolin, especially when we've seen him at Sonoma, mind you, where apparently he was running on a fixed setup in that race, remember, in NAS Open. He wasn't afraid to use the bumper on some of the lap traffic if it was holding up for a split second. So if you're mains, you have to think about that in mind and think smart here. Do you want to be very defensive, or do you want to try and think big picture for short runs in the future if you can make it work in your way with still the 0.6 of a second gap?
There's Bolin getting by.
Oh, spin off the corner. Salas is spun out on the 14. Bottom of the racetrack. Wow.
Yeah. Day Green. He's out. So Salas is out of this race because he spun down, tagged the inside concrete. No caution came out, and he had to take a turn off the pit lane. He decided that is a race ender for him. Here's the replay.
Yeah, and it's going to be on corner exit off of turn 1 and 2, where he just started drifting, missed a little bit of the braking zone maybe. A little bit too quick, starts to drift the back end, then he realizes he's going to spin it out. If he locks it up here, he's getting hit hard by Cook. Floors it to keep it out of traffic, and knows that if he keeps it on the track and tries to back it up, that's a caution. Indoor gets him demolished, ends his race early, he's done for the night.
He actually kept it off the concrete. Not a bad job. But yeah, just a terrible spot to end up. And as a result, a very good runner from earlier in this race is out. He was third. And Bolin has slashed that lead in half. 3.5 tenths now. It's 3 seconds back to Kane Cook. Top two in a league of their own at the moment. There are still 25 cars on the lead lap.
Still ways away up to the 25th place car still, but I'm keeping an eye at this point on how Bolin plays this. Remember when he caught up to the back end of Salas, he saved the tires we've seen for about 15-20 laps. Does Bolin try and push the issue and just take the race lead as quick as he can, or try and save it? It almost looks like he's gone into full saving mode, where he's stronger on corner entry, but he's letting it roll more on corner exit, just keeping mains within a decent distance.
Did you see that group up the road from these two? Joshua Campbell, Hickson, Wilborn, Ullman, Bruno, Conrath. Not Conrath, Conrath's up the order. I can only see 20 cars at once on iRacing, Justin. If you go back far enough, eventually you stop looking at 30-place cars and you end up mid-pack.
Didn't know that for your respective settings, but I think right now it's going to be tight on how some of the management is. We've seen them give them the space immediately. If that has become a mainstay for this race. Again, if you're a lap car, you don't want to wreck the leader. yes, there isn't blue flags, Ryan, but there's also the unwritten rule of common sense. You don't fight the race leader when you're in 25th position.
But if you're battling the dude in 24th, how do you approach getting laps, Justin? I'm sure it's not as common for you as it is for me. But, you know, I'm taking my line. I'm not lifting off. I'm going to take my line, and the leader can get by me. If I'm having a really terrible race and I'm not battling anyone, then yeah, I'll probably run the low line if it's, say, Bristol, or on the top line if we're here at Richmond. But if you're even remotely battling someone, and it might not be a case of on the racetrack, but if they're a second up the road, you don't want to give away quarter of a second, half a second, because you lifted off the leader, do you?
Depends on the situation and the driver, specifically. If I'm fighting for position, yeah, I'm going to likely hold on to the line. But if I'm, say, that second back, I'm letting him go because, in theory, that second's going to come right on back when they get to that next car up the road and balance the time back out. At the same time as well, if you try and be very defensive with the lead lap car and it's someone you know who is going to potentially not like that, you have to play that in mind, or else it likely means you have an opportunity to get 4 fresh tires after a 360 spin. So you have to be smart with it, and you have to think about it in a situation-to-situation basis. It's not just clear-cut as, okay, I'm going to not let a single car go. That's where you end up building a bad reputation.
I think the only time you ever defend a lead lap car is if you are in a situation where you're battling to stay on the lead lap. You know you're coming to pit stops or something. I don't know. There's not many situations, if any, really, you want to battle to stay ahead of a lead lap car. I think that's more a case of just running a line. If they're faster than you, they should be able to get by. But some tracks, overtaking is not easy. Darlington probably was a good example of that. Meanwhile, Solwich Jr.'s continuous go down the order, isn't he, Justin?
Yeah, we've been following along with him, as you've seen on screen. He is just stuck up the top line. He's trying to get that run we've seen on the last long run about this point at 60 laps into it. Thing is, it's not working as well because, in part, everyone who made it work is about a quarter lane lower than what he's doing right now. He's just drifting up and in turn, weeble wobbling up into the wall we've seen down the back straightaway. So his car just is not handling the way it needs to make that line work for position.
We have 65 laps left to go. Oh, Garrett Maines! He got very close to Mike Bruno coming out of turn 4. Almost drifted straight up the racetrack into the left side door. Would have given him a little bit of a scare. And Graham Boland's actually fallen away a little bit, hasn't he?
Yeah, I think, again, he's backed it down, saved it for the time being, knowing you've got a pit stop likely coming up either under caution or under green. Do you really want to risk sending it along with the lap cars and potentially getting damage and bring up the caution that way? I think Boland's just playing a little bit more smarter. Plus, he's burned up the tires a little bit on the rear end, it seems, where he's bobbling on some of the corner exits and just trying to cool down the tires so he's able to try and reel in. And maybe, in theory, too, if this goes the way it's looking, might be able to try the undercut we were talking about, because that could be a big enough difference to try and win this race.
On board with James Wenzel, looking at the back of the low-line car of Matt Forcarper that I think just grabbed the apron there into the corner and got a little bit loose as Wenzel got loose out of the corner. The way the banking transitions to the flat apron will unsettle the car any day of the week as soon as you touch it. As here comes Wenzel now to the inside.
Yeah, slowly a little bit quicker. Just able to get that preferred bottom line, but this is now going to hold them up a little bit because that top, remember, has been good on the longer runs. Interesting point to bring up. The undercut strategy is opened up for those people trying to split the race in thirds. Solis Jr., Wilborn elected to roll the dice. Last time by, they elected to pit.
You talk about Boland just waiting. He's in. So Graham Boland's come in. And to be honest, I reckon his tyres were going off because he was 3/10 slower the previous lap. That's, you know, putting you in an awkward spot. So he's in. He's going to grab the undercut. And Maines surely will have to respond on this lap. He doesn't. So maybe he's going to go the opposite, go for the overcut. Stay out as long as he can and hope for a caution to catch all those guys a lap down as Cook and Harrison Lyon come to pit road.
And it looks like all the technical alliance mates, except for Guest, are realizing their tires are going off. They need to try something different if they want to try and win this race. I think if you're in the case of Maines, you try and stretch it out and hope you pin those cars a lap down at this point. Because now this is the interesting part. Will it stay green?
Caution.
No, it will not. Caution.
It's like clockwork, isn't it? The good news for some of these guys is because they were so close to the front, they'll only be one lap down. Tucker Minter's issue was he was already mid-pack, so he went 2 laps down as a result. Minter, again, is going to get caught out, though, because he's lost to Lucky Dog by having cars pit.
He's punching air, but I believe it might have been Wilborn who spun around, who is already out of the race. He's now left. This is going to completely open up the doors for a couple drivers for solid top 5 runs. Take a look, just send it harder on the corner entry. This is on fresh tires, mind you. Spins it around, avoids contact. It says, I'm done, in his ERG machine. That is huge because that pins Bowen, Cook, Lyon and company to the point where they'll need a wave around and be losing all their track position. Smart call by Maines not to counter right there, Ryan.
Yeah, they'll lose their track position because they're only a lap down. They stay out, everyone who hasn't pitted comes in. They get the wave around and they rejoin the back of the train. They have done literally 0 laps on their tyres, so they'll still have completely fresh rubber. So the tyre life isn't going to have any disparity, but yeah, the track position, Maines will be first, you would think, whereas the wave around cars have got to start behind. Ooh, pit exit light. That's new. Have got to start behind some of our lapped cars and all the lead lap cars.
Well, at least it isn't a fire truck, like one of those broadcasts back in the day with that, but Maines passes by the beautiful new caution light at the pit road exit. And I think the way it indicates, you see the blinking red light. When it blinks red, that means the pit road exit is closed because the pace car is passing by. When you see it solid gray like that, the light's off, you can come down to the pit entry. The pit exit rather. While on this end of the speedway, you see that caution light that will indicate it, I believe, for some of these respective cars and indicate, okay, this is the situation for you in that respective lap. So, an interesting little tidbit added there. From iRacing, the most recent build here. It looks like you're at Richmond.
Would a red light potentially not mean it's closed?
In theory, yes. For lead lap cars specifically.
Closed for lead lap cars. So if you're Lewis Hamilton, you're looking at that and thinking, great, pit lane's open.
I believe so. If you're talking about in real life, yeah, you're just thinking, oh, there's a safety car. That means I can come down, right? It's not that simple.
NASCAR has a slightly different rules to the Road Series when it comes to cautions coming out. So, Garrett Maines is the leader of the race. Harrison Lyon, last car that will be on the lead lap when we go back green. Who got the lucky dog?
It was Graham Bowen, actually, who was the lucky dog as Minter's coming down for some more service. There's a couple sets to remain for these respective drivers now, and the interesting thing is when you get the 2-to-go signal this time, do drivers elect to even use them? Because if it becomes a caution-free caution race with everyone knowing they're good on the fuel, do you even risk the track position knowing it's going to be chaotic in the back of the field? Now this is where it gets interesting from this point on in this race, Ryan, because if it gets to where I think it is about to head towards, buckle up. The strategy game's about to open up, and you're about to have to get a lot of backup bumpers in your pit lane box.
Yes, you are. Tucker Minter. He pitted. Now, I think he's ended up on the lead lap here. Not quite sure how, because he was a lap down.
He's a lap down with updated, but here's the thing. He is the first car 1 lap down technically on the racetrack at the moment. If he gets the caution that comes quickly with drivers trying to send it knowing they're good on the fuel, that's where it gets intriguing. Also keep in mind, Bowen's going to have to start behind all those drivers who are 1, 2, or 3 laps down respectively in some positions on this track. I expect him to send it fairly aggressively here to try and gain all that time up. It's a ways away up the field, mind you, up to Harrison Line and company, and here's respective wave rounds.
Looking for our second restart of the day. Once again, it's Garrett Maines. Green flag is back out from Richmond. Sam King, not a good start from second. That's going to check up the 5 for Boyd Hogan, and it's going to allow the 15 of Michael Guest, the 33 rather, into second place.
And now the question is, does Guest have the pace to try and fight for the race lead? He's the highest up driver in his technical alliance, so this is something that can be really intriguing. How this plays out for Guest. Had a solid race at Darlington earlier this week in the Cup Series. Now, can he try and get an NIS win to make it 2 for 3? That's the big question.
Ryan Boland's back in 17th on this restart. Lyon, Carruth, they're all back there as well. Kane Cook too. As Doucette looks down to the inside of Matt 4 Carper. And Brendan McKissick just in front. There's your leaders as well. There's 4 Carper slotting into line after Doucette made that move.
Oh, and somebody's spinning down the backstretch. Roger Carruth has hit the inside wall.
Caution comes out for Raja Carruth then. And that is big damage to the front end of his Toyota Camry. That 31 gonna need to make a trip to pit lane. Right rear has damage as well. Wonder if he got help. Modem simulation replay gonna tell us the tale.
Yeah. He, I think, did get a bit of help, but it wasn't from behind. It was actually from in front, Ryan, because see Bridgman up there with the checkup, has to let off the gas, and right there Bowen hits the back end of him. Carruth hits the back end of him, loses control of the car in that massive checkup, and gets the worst of the damage. Mind you, he actually got a black flag under the caution flag, and it just served it a lap ago. So, add insult to injury for the Richmond Raceway Esports Development Program driver.
Man, he almost had it. What the wheel work he had going on. Had about, I think, 4 wiggles before it eventually snapped out of control as a handful of cars come to pit road here. It looks like Jake Hickson's one of them. Let's grab some fresh rubber.
I believe this just worked out for one driver. Unfortunately, it wasn't Tucker Minter, because Matthew Benson got the lucky dog. So, again, this is why, at Richmond, you try and stay as long as you can. Otherwise, you likely lose the lucky dog to 1 or more cars if you get a yellow flag, and that just happened once again to Tucker Minter.
Yeah.
So,
sorry, Justin. I don't know why Minter pitted, because he was in a position to get a wave around. And yeah, the other cars with him had fresh tyres, and they were in that spot because they just pitted. He was in that spot because he'd stayed out and had been caught out earlier on. So if he got the wave around, he'd been on old tyres and been in a bit of trouble if it wasn't green. But surely he had to take the gamble for a quick caution to come out like it has. Because by pitting, well, he's a lap down still. He could have been back on the lead lap.
I mean, looking back at it at the time of the caution flag, Minter was actually, I think, just about to try and get to the inside that lap on Benson. It's just the fact that the caution came so quick, I don't think he would have expected it at that point. Now, as long as he defends on Solis Jr. and Tanner Love, I think he's okay to potentially get this wave around, or get the lucky dog, rather. He's in a decent spot again. It's still going to be a bit more of luck needed. As long as he doesn't hit somebody or get hit, he's going to be okay. Now, the bigger question once more is, how does Guest do on the top line for this restart this time alongside Maines?
We've got 46 to go. Do you see anyone pitting in this race again from our leading group?
If we get a 15-lap run, that's where I can see some people from the lead group try and gamble and take fresher tires. if we get towards under 20 to go even, and it's still a caution-free caution where you get maybe a 3, 4, 5 lap run to the most, up to that point, you're likely not pitting again. So it comes down in part to length of the run, Ryan, and when the cautions start to fall, because that's where drivers are going to start gambling and saying, I'd rather be up in front of the field and risk being passed by drivers in fresher tires than take the fresher tires and have to pass said drivers in turn, and hoping for a bit of luck and gambles in their mind.
Well, there's one thing I can say with certainty. With only 45 left, no one is going to be cut any slack in this field. Now's the time to go and expect some bumpers and some fenders to be used up as we go back green.
The crowd sounds very pumped up here, and another good launch by Maines. Another decent one by Guess, similar to what he had the last run, but again, drivers like both Hogan and a couple others just losing time on these corner entries now because they couldn't get to the bottom quickly after starting up on the top.
Yeah, looking at Hogan now, he's got McKissick on his quarter panel. And with the fresh rubber, it's the inside every day of the week. It's not till the middle to end of the run of that second lane. It still starts to come in and you can make some ground up there. And McKissick, despite Hogan really pinching him down, trying to fight, is surely going to clear him in a moment. And Doucette's just waiting for that to happen so he can go through as well.
And I think the reason Hogan is fighting so hard is he knows that Doucette's right behind him, and if he lets both these cars go, he's going to likely have to start on the top again. But finally saying, you know what, I'm killing my tires, have to just let them on go, get back to the bottom line and regroup, and then try and pass them back here.
This is where the choose rule will be interesting in iRacing.
That's going to be a little while, I believe, but still, going to be curious how this all goes out again, because once more, the way this race is shaped out is right into Maines' wheelhouse. He's going on the short run, and now there's a car in the grass, Patrick Moose.
Caution comes out again. Single car spin, he gathers it up. This time, as Moose loses it, the caution will fly, unlike earlier on.
And that's one of the risks when it comes to getting squished on down on the corner exit. Well, to see it specifically where he has a bit of quarter panel down, so that takes a little bit of the downforce away from that back tire. It can make you loose on corner exit at first. As well, it's going to be, I believe, with Matt Forkapal, where he was side by side the next time by, where he finally just about got clear and got to the bottom side and was trying to make a move. But the problem was, once he tried to make the move, he got pinched down and just lost control and grip coming down the corner. You'll see it right about here where it just snaps around trying to keep the full throttle off of the low-line racing car.
Next lap.
Yes, indeed. So set this up for about a lap. And of course, low-line car not wanting to give up a spot here, knowing there's 3-4 cars in the bottom lined up behind him. Gives a bit of a pinch. Moose trying to keep it off him. Loops it down, locks it up again. This time it's enough to trigger a caution flag. And guess what? It's triggered some drivers electing to mix it up on the tire strategy because of that half spin and caution from Patrick Moose. Noel, Hickson, Guest, Mercurio, Benson, Bolin, Cook, Line, and Wenzel have now taken fresh tires this caution, Ryan. And in turn, if we get a bit of a longer run, wouldn't be surprised to see those cars we just read off stay out and be the lead cars, and could in turn determine how this plays out.
Hey, Tucker Minter's back on the lap. He got the lucky dog. I almost feel like making Jay wrangle with the replay settings again because as they all came to pit road, there was a lot of faking going on. Garrett Maines looked like he committed. Then at the last second, thought, nah, and came back out. I think at that point, Guest had no choice but to come in. Sam King was just able to react and just missed the water barrels, actually, as he decided to stay out. And then a couple more went out, and a few more came in. It was an interesting display.
Yeah, but it's also something to be expected. You want to try and trick your fellow drivers out, so to speak, where you don't want to make yourself predictable and say, okay, la-di-da, I'm going down the pit lane, and as soon as you pass the barrels, everybody else ditches you on the racetrack. You want to leave it to where you force them to commit, and in turn, force them in a box. And that's what I think Maines did in part there, and essentially forced everyone to try something different here. How it all, again, factors in depends on how many cautions fly in these next 36 or so laps.
If we go green, those fresh tyres are going to work very nicely, aren't they? So, pros and cons to both choices here. And we'll see how this works out. Those cars that pitted, led by Michael Guest. Guest is now 15th. And Mercurio's 16th. Just ahead of, coincidentally, Graham Boland.
Graham, just before that caution, was getting ready to try, I think, past them, in fact, down the front straightaway. But the counterpoint you have to think about is, if this ends up being caution-free caution, where you get to, say, another 8 to 10 lap run, I'm curious if drivers like Maines, King, Doucette try and pit and try the fresher tires on their respective cars. That's a massive gamble. But it's one that may happen at this point. One to go signal once again. Again, the drivers on the fresher tires. 15th on back here. Buckle up.
Without fail, long green flag runs, and then you pack the cautions in at the end, because as the aggression rises, the margin for error disappears, and the cautions fly. Green flag will fly as we go back racing. That might be the best jump of the night for Garrett Maines.
It is, and so it is for McKissick. Really sending its turn King.
Up into the fence, cautions back out as Sam King whacks the safety barrier, and Joshua Campbell, big damage to his rear end as a few drivers tried to avoid and got into each other.
Yeah, that was a bit of a send there for McKissick. Tried to hug the bottom line, and King trying to dive it on down, racing situation where, yeah, King trying to back it on down and try and squeeze, and then McKissick just tried to hold on to the old line and hold on to the bottom line. That's going to potentially spark a little bit of fever in tempers right there with that little bit of contact.
Yeah, in fact, Joshua Campbell was having a separate incident at the same time. Michael Guest, trying to fill a hole that wasn't really there, turned Campbell around, and Graham Boland ended up collecting him.
What in the world happened there? I think we have to take another look at that respective caution if we can, because that in turn is going to change up the drivers on the fresher tires. This is going to be from the one to go signal coming to the green flag. Campbell is that red and white car you see about 6th row on the bottom side. Guest and all the drivers in fresher tires are about row 7 on back. So, expected them to have a big send to try and make a pass. Everything that happens up towards the front and causes a bit of checkup situations. Campbell doesn't get a good run. Guest makes it 3 wide. Has to check up hard. Campbell pushes up, and Guest just forces the hole there with the slight push-up of half a lane and ends up turning Campbell right in front of his technical alliance mate.
Yeah, you mentioned he slid up. From that angle, it's a bit hard to tell, but he slid up, but there wasn't really a car's width there. I mean, with the apron,
no.
Sure.
It was half a lane. It was about half a lane there. And the caution was just about already out at that point. So I'm just here thinking at this point, you have to know that there's about to be a yellow since there's a car about 180 degrees nearly against the wall.
Well, 31 to go. Another caution. That is caution number 4, I think. In 20 or so laps, you've had 3 cautions.
That would be 5.
This is great for Maines and McKissick, and Doucette, and Hogan. All those cars that stayed out. Because the less green flag running we have, the more likely it is they can stay in front.
And again, this is the gamble where you take fresh tires, and if you end up in turn getting stuck in the traffic, That's going to end up making things very wild in the pack. Again, would you rather risk having to pass by 20 cars or try and defend 3 cars? What choice would you make, Ryan? Because I think the latter option makes more sense in theory.
Yeah, but when I run these events, Justin, my tires burn up in 15 laps. And it's also in like 7 splits. So whatever I say doesn't have much credibility to it.
Still though, with 1 to go, this is in a better situation, I think, for Maines and company now that some of the others are still stuck in traffic. Now, if it stays green, that's the curious part, because Guest actually gained spots from that maneuver up to 12th or so. So he's going to be charging hard. Owen's still going to be charging hard despite that hit. Cook's going to be charging hard. Mercurio's going to be charging hard. A lot of people are going to be charging hard, and potentially things are going to go 3-4 wide again.
Amusingly, Joshua Campbell will restart, still ahead of Michael Guest. Coming back to the green. This time, Maines waits longer than he's ever waited before. I said it last time, this time it definitely is his best job of the night. Doucette will slot into second. They are 3 wide behind as Hogan through the middle has got McKissick up top. And he's got Conrath down low. How the hell did Conrath get there? He was at the back for a lot of the race, but he's found some great pace late on as McKissick slides way up the track and lose out to both of them.
A little bit of a later arc there as Sean Powell is now around and another caution. I believe an Eric car's also involved. Graham Bowen again.
Another caution.
And that might be...
That's day done for him.
It's looking more and more smarter to stay out at this point, huh? What happened there was down the front straightaway. Believe Powell actually put himself into the fence, bobbled off the corner and hit the outside wall, and in turn, Bowen had nowhere to go and he just got pinballed to the inside wall in the grass. This is going to be shown from the 1 to go signal all the way up to the incident at the end of the speedway.
Oop. Well, there was a checkup on the restart.
Yeah, I believe there was a bit of a snack up there. Bowen actually hit the back end of somebody a little more, believe. And then you have Noel nearly hit the back end of Mercurio. So it was already getting very wild back then, and then Powell, who is a little bit towards the outside line in all this, you're going to see it coming off the corner exit at the start and finish line. Looks okay, just hits the wall a little bit too much tightness, and Bowen just gets pinballed.
Oh, Jake Hickson. Oh, when it's your day, it's your day. Jake Hickson will be counting as lucky stars. I think you just used all of them up.
And correct me if I'm wrong, did we just see a Tucker Minner without a front nose there at the end of that last shot?
I hope not. He'd only just gotten back with the lead lap.
Oh, look, it is.
Oh, Tucker.
And it was from that wreck, by the way, because he hit the back end of his teammate in the massive check on, hit the back end of Patrick Moose. In other news, it's still looking really good now for Garrett Maines up at the front with the best short run car in the field.
Yeah. I think at this point, he's got to be thinking he's in with a really good chance now. Because Guest is still only 10th. There's no damage to his car, so even despite that incident earlier on, but I don't know, 10th to 1st, there's some fast cars still ahead of him.
I mean, Guest only went 1 lap in his win on Thursday afternoon in NAS competition. 1. So it is doable. It's just a matter of, I think he needs laps. Think back to the Coke race at Richmond back in the spring when it was in the daytime. Yarl stayed on 30-lap old tires. He got caution precautions on 3 straight restarts. That happens a couple more times. He likely wins the race instead. His tires, once about 5 laps came off the board, They were done, and he was cooked in that race. It's not as dramatic now for these cars. It's about 10, 15 laps, maybe at the very most. But it's still a difference that can make a bit of an impact.
Which lap did he lead?
The last one.
I mean, if you're going to lead a lap, that's the one to lead, right?
Yes, it is. So, don't be shocked if it happens again, right?
We'll see, we'll see.
It could become a crazy one.
Gonna be a tough ask, but who knows? One to go. Hopefully this time we can get a few green flag laps under our belt.
I hope that's not our commentator's curse, Ryan.
It only becomes a curse if you point it out.
Hey, look on the bright side.
It's just an unhappy coincidence.
Look at the bright side. Bristol's next week.
Oh no. I hope these drivers short out their short track late racing by then. Alright. We'll try this again. Pace car peels off of turn number 4, coming back to the green flag from Richmond. Away we go. Good start for Garrett Maines. Getting sick of saying that. Someone's got to go with him at some point.
Oh, but Richmond's already spun off the jump.
Don't tell me that. We'd stay green though. So Richmond will be pretty annoyed by that actually. As Conrath almost got doored by Jake Matheson. I'm still trying to figure out how Conrath has emerged up at the front because he was almost going a lap down earlier on. In fact, I think he might have been a lap down. As Matheson goes by him, can he get down in front of McKissick? He's got chance if he wants to be aggressive, but he doesn't. Opts to do it, and McKissick gonna slide up into him.
And I believe these are teammates, mind you, here that are trying to door each other and outguessed. The freshest tires, first up said freshest tires rather, now gets the chance to cut his way through.
Nowhere to go.
Just waiting for the right moment to pounce. And he's gonna make it 3.
Yep, he had nowhere to go. He had no choice. Barely got down there. He was very fortunate that McKissick gave him the room. Conrath backed out of it, said, I don't want to be on the outside of 3 wide at Richmond. We've already seen that play out badly for someone earlier else on in this race. As Guest gets by both of them, so he's up into P5 now, and he's 1.5 seconds back from the race lead of Maines.
And now if it continues to go the way it is, it's going right in the direction Guest, Mercurio, and Cook, I think, needed it to go. Get a long enough run to where everyone else on the older tires is in the box, and you can pounce and take their positions if you avoid the carnage. That's the key word. Avoid the carnage. And just don't make contact with anyone. That's got to be something all these drivers have to be echoing in their head right now. Don't hit anyone and don't hit the wall.
There's Maines. There's Doucette behind him. Hogan is a little ways off the back. With Matheson right behind and Michael Guest for close company as well. 15 to go. As Maines might have just tagged the fence there. Coming across the start-finish stripe. Let's go on board with Guest. Look at where he's running on the racetrack. He's right in behind Jake Matheson. So how's he make this move? Well, he just turns it left off the exit of turn 4 and gets to the inside. That's what the extra grip can do for you.
You have extra grip for entry, you have extra grip for corner exit to be a little more quicker, and it just all balances out. We've seen Hogan be willing to give space to these respective Coke drivers when they've gotten some runs, like we're going to make the pass this time by. Now it's the big question. Will he get enough time to make the pass for the race lead? It's looking like it's going right in his direction. Just needs to close up 1.2 seconds.
And if we get a caution, it's not going to help Maines because Guest is going to be right there for the restart. So this is looking very good right now for Michael Guest. Mercurio, who also pitted with him, is only 7th. So Guest has come through the field very good. That aggression's paying off. He is 1.1 seconds back. We've got 12 to go. He's got to catch him. He's got to get by them. But look how easy it was for him to get by those last 2 cars. Just keeps turning left off of turn 4 and gets the inside line.
Thing is here, and Maines, I think, scraped the wall a little bit again on corner entry. He's having Ryan Doucette the closest he's been all night. This is the fastest the Nexus car has been on the short run tonight. I think they may have made the right adjustments they needed to make on their last caution stop to be able to pounce once they knew they would be good to go on the fuel. Trouble down the back straightaway. Campbell, I think, had some trouble. We're still green.
To go. And Maine still with a 4/10 advantage, but Guest is coming.
It's only a couple tenths though, last time by quicker. But the amount of heat cycles that have been on Guest's tires here and everyone else's tires, will he have enough grip to pounce? Look at just how much he's able to send it on the entry.
It's going to be close. It might be another last lap move here. He's got to get by Doucette as quickly as possible. Check that lap's car in the distance as well. Don't expect him to be a factor. He's by himself, so he should get out of the way this late on in the run. Down into 1, he's a move to the dive. He shapes for it. Does Doucette cover? He doesn't. Or he kind of does. Guest into the back bumper. Gave him a little nudge. Moves and up the racetrack. Guest to his inside. Down the back straight. For P2, Michael Guest. Looking to take it away through turn 3 and 4. And he does just that. Now it's just Garrett Maines. Left with 6 to go.
And now, does Maines try and give some space? Or does Guest have to use the bumper? It's similar to what we've seen earlier in this race. Those drivers who are all aligned with one another are so good on in the middle of the apex to be able to rotate the car a little bit quicker than everybody else. That may be the deciding factor. Final 5 laps and traffic ahead.
That lapped car is a tore-up machine of Raja Karuth. I really don't expect him to throw any hardships the way of these guys. Very experienced racer. Knows what he's doing. 4 left. The gap is still over half a second. There's no way Maines is going to roll over and let this one go. Guess if he gets there, will have to be inventive if he wants to find a way by. With the advantage he has with the fresh rubber seems to be getting smaller and smaller.
Apparently, at the area of the speedway, McKissick got hit from behind by Cook and was pushed up towards the fence. That may be what decides this race. It could come down to the bumper in the final couple laps.
2/10 the gap. He's getting there, but is it close enough to throw a move? Is he gaining enough each lap? There's just 2 laps to go here at Richmond. It's coming down to the wire. And if they come together, Doucette in 3rd. Can he steal it away?
It's going to get interesting. Remember, this could get tight with Caruth. Might come into play at the worst possible time for both of these cars. White flag up in the air. Race is official if they take it.
Out of turn 4. Guest is right there with him. White flag. One more time around at Richmond. Maines, can he fend off Guest? Guest throws it in really deep. He gives him a hit. He gives him another hit. He's pushing him through turn 2. Watch for the big dive into 3 and 4. Can he get to the bumper? He does. He moves him up the road, out of the way. Gonna squeeze him on the exit. It's Maines versus Guest, a drag race, and Maines wins it.
How about that for a finish? Like I said, would have come down to the bumper and did. What a job by Maines to hold on with all that contact.
That was respectful as well. He used the bumper, but it was respectful, Justin, because the way they came out of turn 4 would have been so easy for Guest to move up and door Maines, and he didn't.
Yeah, there is a wrong way to do a bump and run and a right way. That was the right way. Enough to just loosen the car in front, but not wreck the car in front. Guest did that the proper way, and just gave enough space in turn for Maines to hold enough grip to still try and hold on to the car without smashing it up. What a job, though, by Maines to keep it at the stripe about Just a 100th of a second, the difference between him and Guest.
Oh, we love to see that sort of racing when he comes short track racing on a iRacing. That's a lot of racing. What a race that was. Let's have a look at our full results. So Maines wins by 200ths of a second over Michael Guest. Ryan Doucette home in third. Jake Matheson fourth. Boyd Hogan in fifth. Mercurio sixth and Kane Cook seventh. Harrison Lyon, Matt Forcappa, and James Wenzel, your top 10.
11th spot tonight goes to Sam King. Garrett Conrath goes to 12th with Matthew Benson in 13th. Hickson, Smallwood, Jabo, Noel, Howell, Ryder, and Solis Jr. your top 20.
21st, going to go the way of Keith Bridgman. Brendan McKissick, only 22nd, last car on the lead lap. Then Tucker Minter ends up a lap down, 23rd. Tanner Love, Colin Ullman, Mike Bruno, Raja Caruth, 27th. Joshua Campbell and Patrick Moose. Graham Boland, 30th. These are all retirements now as well, by the way. Wilborn, Salas, Hernandez, Johnson, and Ray. Your 35-car field from Richmond. A great green flag run to open us up. Cautions are plenty at the end. And one of the all-time great finishes.
One of the closest, if not one of the best finishes of the year. What a way for it to end. And what a job from both of those drivers who finished 1-2 tonight. For Guest for closing up the gap on the fresher tires. For Maines handling the pressure in the final few moments. What a job by both of them tonight.
That's handy for Garrett Maines and his NIS Championship quest as well, which of course doesn't just run on a Friday night, so points are a bit of a moot point sometimes, but over the course of the week there's about 5 or 6 races, and over the course of the 36-week season, Garrett Maines has acquired a mammoth lead, I think, in those points. But Garrett Maines, welcome to the booth. What a finish to that race. What a job to fend him off.
Thank you, dude. That was, I knew if I stayed out, I was taking that gamble that they were going to get back to me. I kind of expected it to go either caution fest or quick stint, and then we'd need to pit again, and then we would go, caution fest from there. But I was wrong, and guessed if he had another lap, he probably got me. But that is the most fun I've had at Richmond in a long time. That was insane. I'm like watching that replay back. Like, that was about as good as it gets to finish here.
You were sideways coming to the line, wheeling that thing, trying to keep your foot in it. A fantastic job, and no hard feelings with the bump, is there? Because, I mean, that's what you expect when you come short track, and I talked about it as well. It was respectful, though, because the way he came off turn 4 was clean.
Oh, yeah, 100%. I mean, he did what he needed to do to get under me. I mean, he knocked the crap out of me, but, I mean, he only moved me up a groove. I mean, in reality, he didn't do it, maliciously. He did it just as much as he needed, and then coming off a turn 4, I kept my car low, and he didn't drive through me. Like, it was everything you could ask for, coming to the finish. I mean, even with it being a bump and run, he did it the right way, so that was really cool.
You dominated this race. There's not many laps you didn't lead. Talk about the car and the setup coming into this one, because it looked like it was just absolutely planted. Short run, long run, you seem to have it in the bag. Yeah,
that's definitely the best race for statistics as well for me. I led literally every lap, and almost lost on the last one. But Graham was digging tonight. He kind of fell apart when he got back, to my bumper, because I feel like I had more drive off than him, but I feel like he was faster than me everywhere else. But we were struggling in some places, and in the middle of the race, we were really struggling. But I got it back together on a pit stop and made some good adjustments, and it was just enough to hold off Michael there at the end. I was very happy with the way everything shaped out there.
Hey, you've got unofficially a 1,000 point lead. Comfortable?
Definitely much more comfortable after tonight. I've just been trying to put together good finishes. This is my first time ever going for NIS Open Championship, so I've learned a lot. Building a lot of my own sets for a few of these tracks, and I've just learned so much being in the open scene for, this season that I've been able to, really adapt the cars to my style, and it's really shown, place like tonight. Vicente normally whoops me here, so I was really happy, to be able to run with him. Just, it definitely helps to have the setup tuned, in the direction that you like to drive, and I feel like, with the update this week, it also helped me as well. Just, you know, more attuned to the way I like to drive instead of being really, really edgy. But overall, definitely a very, very good night.
Certainly was. Hey, who do you want to thank for helping you get out there, get the pole, get the win, and every lap on your way there?
Yeah, I got to thank Smithfield 101 CBD, SimSeats, Strickland Hardy, all the guys at Elliott Sadler Esports for all the support from them, and for them propelling me to that RTP win this week. That was really cool, and to finally get one. All the guys at Richmond Raceway for all their support. It's cool to get a broadcasted win here. This is the first week that I've won Richmond NIS, so to get two already for the first time, definitely really cool with them on the car. So thank you to them for all their support.
Thank you very much for joining us here, Garrett. Congratulations on a stunning win here at Richmond Raceway.
Thank you, sir.
So that was Garrett Maines getting the win and everything else that goes along with it here at Richmond, and Justin Prince standing by for our next interview.
Yes, indeed. It's Ryan Doucette coming home P3. You saved the best for last in this race. How are you feeling P3 tonight?
Pretty good. I feel like I finished kind of where I deserved to finish at that point in the race. Wasn't a whole lot more I could have done. We had obviously the same set of tires Garrett had on it. He just had a little bit more drive off than I did. I couldn't really keep up with him those last 20 laps.
You and the majority of your teammates tonight were running around 7th, 8th, up to around 15-ish tonight. Then all of a sudden it seemed all of your cars found a switch. Once everyone knew they could make it on fuel, and even with some of the drivers on ordered tires, they still stuck it out for good top 10 finishes up towards the front after being deep in the field on evenly set tires. What was that? What did you guys rather adjust to be able to be faster at the final corner of this race, and in turn keep the track position even with the fresher tire cars coming in quick?
I think it's more so just a change in driving style. During those long runs, I know personally I was taking it really conservative to try and get the most out of it towards the end of the run as I could. And the long runs weren't easy for me, unfortunately, this race. I worked my way into the lower half of the top 10 that first run, and then ended up speeding on pit road. Had to work my way back through the field a little bit, and then got lucky with the way the caution fell around 40 to go. And the caution fell my way, was able to get a little bit of track position through those restarts, and found myself in third.
Next week's Bristol, and I know that's a track the people at Nexus love to go to. Your thoughts going to Bristol under the lights next week for more top split action?
I couldn't ask for two better tracks to go to. Richmond and Bristol, probably my personal two favorite tracks on the schedule. And I gotta thank Nexus for all they do, giving me these fast setups every week. I wouldn't be anywhere near the top 5 even without these guys. Also Viper Graphics, Norton Racing Designs, and yeah, all the guys at Nexus Esports.
Congratulations on the solid run tonight.
Thank you.
Ryan Doucette finishing P3. To his fellow namesake we go, and Ryan Jones.
Yep. And with that, I think that brings us to the end of our show at Richmond. What a fantastic night of racing from this glorious short track. Next time, we head to another glorious short track, the last great Coliseum, Bristol Motor Speedway. So make sure you tune in at the same time, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, next Friday night, for that right here on the iRacing Esports Network. Make sure to go like SimSpeed Esports Network as well across social media to stay up to date with all the latest action from us across the week. But for tonight, from myself, Ryan Jones, Justin Prince alongside, and Jay Kennedy behind the scenes, thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction. He's going the outside of both of them. Maloney.
Oh, he's taken Anderson. Anderson's up top.
Oh my God. Big crash. Oh my goodness, half the field's going to get rolled.
Second very close. These guys are want to make their way through the field very quickly. Oh, there we go. Oh no, that's massive. This is it. This is over. I can't believe this. Oh my God.
God, what?